and you're right on the Afghani border, and you know that there's Afghanistan right there, and you know that you're in this village of Iraq, Tajikistan, and when you pull into that community, I remember right, I was by myself when I pulled in. The welcoming, added the curiosity, the people that want to connect. I am here with Nation and Heather. They're with Aloha Publishing, and we came together a few years ago doing a book publishing activity. We're still working on that, but in the meantime, we're going to do things like our Along the Way podcast, where we can actually take the travels and the experience and share the perspectives and learnings with everybody that's possibly interested in this.
So I think one of the first questions I wanted to ask is kind of getting to your roots. Why do you travel?
Wow, why do I travel? What a big question. But the issue really is, I think, how does travel get developed? How to get developed in me, and I go back to my father, and he 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 loved to go take vacations. I mean, he loved to travel. We camped almost all the time. And I can remember as a kid, you loved it until you were about 15 or 16 years old, and there's no way you wanted to take your summer, traveling with your parents around the United States, seeing, national parks and stuff like that. But it did get in my blood. But I think now, then you get into your world where you're lots of business travel, and I did a lot of business travel. But then there was always this missing piece that I didn't spend the extra day or two, um, you know, investigating, a country or even a state or a region or a national park that was next to a convention center or something like that.
You didn't feel like you investigated enough? Like you didn't know about it enough?
Always felt a little bit like I need to get back here. I need to come back and experience this region or country.
Like maybe you missed something on your trip, something important.
Right, exactly. So what happens then is in 2016, we had this phenomenal experience, a group of us did, called Expedition 65. And it was literally planned to be, and we did. We went from Cartagena, Colombia to Ushuaia, Argentina.
Wow.
And it was the vertical length of South America. It wasn't a tour. It never was billed as a tour. It never was a tour. It was a group of guys getting together to travel the vertical length of South America.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens with that is something really grabbed me at that point because I felt the satisfaction of getting to explore remote areas of the Andes or Patagonia, or get to stop and visit a llama or an alpaca farmer or something like that. And what an experience. But what happened to me at that point, as I repeated myself, you're going to edit that.
It's all good.
But anyway, but I think you say there's so much I need to go do, and there's a missing piece. I'm ready for the next chapter.
Gotcha.
So a few years later, I did retire and kind of planned my retirement, but I wasn't totally sure that to what degree I could break away from the company I love, the Simplot company, and the work that I love and the people that I really enjoyed and appreciated and being with. So I did choose to retire, and mainly to go do this type of travel, remote travel, and kind of perspective-based travel. And I say it all the time. If I'm not interested in going where tour buses go.
Yeah.
Now you do, and you show up with tour buses. And
Happens.
And in all honesty, I get a kick out of them because
Especially in Europe.
yeah. No, Europe's unbelievable. Every time I ride over there, I'm kinda going, there's just no way to get away from them. But it's not that that's a bad way to travel.
Yeah.
It's just not my way.
Well, I think really quick before we move on to the specifics of travel, was Expedition 65 your first travel on a motorcycle?
Yeah,
Inter-
no, I had done actually, a number of times. I'd spent some time in Australia and
Okay.
traveling on a motorcycle,
But that was the most
but it was
impactful.
still it absolutely
Okay.
that was almost 10 years, 8 years ago, yes,
Okay.
and it did have a big impact on me.
Okay. That's great. So when you went to Expedition 65, you said that was the turning point when you realized that travel doesn't have to be touristy. It's more of an experience for the culture. Or
Yeah, I think, one of the bylines that I almost intentionally use, maybe even for my life, is perspective on purpose. I mean, really try to pursue perspective, be purposeful about it, be very, I'm very intentional about what perspective can I gain here today with this situation or with this circumstance, because it's real and it happens if you really pay attention to what's available to you.
hmm And so that, I mean, I would imagine that's the heart of when you go to travel. Um, Maybe explain a little bit on like how you pick a country, why you pick a country, and then how you choose the route and the different experiences that you're looking for. Because I know you plan some in advance. You're not just winging it, right?
Yeah, I wing it a lot. Oh, trust me on this, I wing it a lot.
Okay.
But no, I think a little bit of it is sometimes it's with like I've done a couple of big trips with Helge Peterson, and he is one of the legends of global motorcycle travel. But he travels the way I am committed to, and that is deep intersection with the local people and the local cultures.
Okay.
And he also, and it's not when you travel with Helge, he'll have a small group of people of riders
Okay.
with
So
him.
is it tight?
Yeah, but so that's somewhat organized, but you don't ride in a group. You connect every evening,
Mm-hmm.
and you spend a lot of time riding by yourself.
So you say you connect every evening in a sense. You have a like a place you sleep and that's where you'll meet, but during the day you do whatever you want.
Right, yeah, and that's the objective, is to go experience it at the level you want to experience. That's awesome. The region or the country or the continent that way. Now, Helge is an exceptional humanitarian, and he's an exceptional explorer, and he really you can stop and really digest things. From a perspective of Africa as an example, I did Africa with Helge, and it couldn't have been a more rewarding experience. Wow. As an example, but as you said, Nation, that one of the issues is they're not all that way. I mean, you'll do a trip like that, and then you'll go plan something that'll be, I've been to Ushuaia 4 times. None of those were organized tours.
Okay.
Do I want to go to Ushuaia again? I don't know. I think I pretty well worn that out.
Yeah.
Would I like to go and spend more time in the Andes? Absolutely. Do I love South America? Possibly my favorite part of the world. At the same time, I need to get to Brazil, and I have a really good friend of mine, Pablo Video, and he will. We are going to work on the Amazon as an example, possibly in the next 6 months.
That's interesting. So you'll hit the same place multiple times because you didn't feel like you got the full experience, or what is it that you're missing? You go back again.
Well, particularly in South America, because you're opposite weather, being in the southern hemisphere, so it worked really well. And I'll continue to go to South America. I mean, I'm not done, but there's so much more to see and experience in South America. That's just going, to Ushuaia as an example.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, you've said that about Africa. You want to go back.
Yeah,
So you feel like you didn't dive deep enough.
right. Heather, it's when there's, I don't know. I mean, I think I could spend the rest of my life in Africa and not glean all the perspective and experience that I would glean out of it. So I think probably, Southern Hemisphere. I'm not going to go this winter. I need to stay home some because I've been gone a lot. But I will say that going back, I kind of want to go back and do one country at a time instead of trying to do a continent. And there's a great book out called Africa is Not a Country. And the real meaning behind that is that you have to take each country at a time. And you know that because you live there.
Yeah, yeah. And we actually, my husband and I say that. They'll be like, oh, what country are you going to? We're like, not Africa. It's not a country.
Yeah, Africa is not a country.
We're specifically going to Niger.
Yeah, that's right.
Good title.
Yeah.
It is a good title.
It's a great book, by the way. So, but the point is I need to go back to South Africa as an example soon.
Yeah.
And really digest kind of the evolution of democracy or the lack of democracy. And what does that mean? And what did democracy? How did all this get to where it is today? And what are the limitations for South Africa, or what are the opportunities for South Africa in the future? So we'll find out.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be, riding 150 miles a day or 200 miles a day on dirt roads in Africa. Could it be that, you ride for a day or two, spend some time with some of the tribes, spend time in little villages and communities, ask a lot of questions, find a point of trust that you can sit down and have a conversation, maybe around a meal or maybe around, field dressing a goat for dinner or something. I think those are valuable experiences.
You talk about curiosity a lot. And it sounds to me, just as you're explaining your trips, that your curiosity will never be satisfied.
Yeah.
And is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I think, there's times when one question begs another question, begs another question. I don't think when it comes right down to it that my curiosity will ever be satisfied because there's something that comes up again. I just spent just a short period of time with a lady from Zambia, and I could have just bothered. It was just last Saturday night at a wedding, and I could have in fact, I was trying to be respectful of her time and the social event, and because I have so many questions about the evolution of Zambia, what happened after the subjugation and colonization of Zambia, and how that country's evolving, and what will it evolve to? What does it mean when the Chinese come in and put irrigation systems in and invest all this money? What does that mean? And what will that look like? And could you become a Chinese colony someday? No. I mean, actually, well, no. She would say no.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I asked her that question, but that's what goes through my head.
And those are questions you ask like when you travel, right?
Yeah. But you really have to reach a point of trust.
Okay.
Yeah. If I walked in and just met somebody and visited with let's just say 3 or 4 people or one person, and started asking kind of weird questions like that. So you kind of have it has to evolve.
Yeah.
Part of the travel on motorcycle is that they're curious about you. They're curious about what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
If you ride in looking like a Power Ranger with 6 or 8 other riders, you're probably not going to get any place. But if you come in on your own, take your helmet off quickly. And there's this universal language called a smile, but seems to work almost any place in the world. Then we can gain kind of a mutual trust, with some level of conversation. And I love it. There's also parts of the world that it just doesn't work. I mean, I can tell you, I have the experience that I had in the outback of Australia.
Australia?
Yeah, the indigenous people in Australia just do not trust, an outsider to come in and have these conversations. I tried them. We tried them. A couple of us tried them. There's 3 of us traveled together in the outback.
Three's not a lot, too. It's not.
No, it wouldn't have been intimidating, but they just weren't comfortable, and you just couldn't get them there. So,
Wow.
I think if you went to a lot of Native American reservations, I've noticed some of those people would be somewhat hesitant. That's just like some, not all, but some.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a good segue to start talking about traveling on the motorcycle.
Yeah, that was my next questions. So for people who are interested, I guess the first question would be, would you travel this way without a motorcycle and with like a grenadier? Or do you like the motorcycle because of what it is?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I would do it with a grenadier or an off-road vehicle.
It doesn't matter.
Well, it does, because first of all, the motorcycles almost begs. You feel like you're literally you're out here looking for the story, the local stories. You're and it almost feels like you can be part of the story easier. You can connect to the story easier. I love riding motorcycles, and I love motorcycles, but I'm not traveling, let's just say 3,000 miles, 4,000 miles a month, just because I love motorcycles. I think it really has to do with, it's just such you can just connect to the people, you can connect to the geography, even the weather. I mean, Norway's a perfect example. All of a sudden you got north of the Arctic Circle, and all of a sudden you really felt the weather.
Yeah.
And there's something very rewarding for me, not for everybody, I'm sure, but for me, the motorcycle just works. Would I do it? Some of this stuff in a grenadier, yes. Would I be bored a lot? Yes. But, in all honesty, I'll probably start doing some more of that, just some adventure type travel. I want it to be more along the line of exploration.
Yeah.
Not necessarily adventure. I'm not looking to have some great adventure. I'm more interested in exploring and learning, and then hopefully sharing any profound perspectives that I gained along the way.
So you're saying that with a motorcycle, there's less barrier between you and the culture, you and the people, you and the country.
Right. The weather. Well, yeah, you know what, for
Great.
sure. Yeah. But if you're on, the Silk Road's I think, pretty good example. For some reason, when you pull into a Harag, Tajikistan, and you're right on the Afghani border, and that there's Afghanistan right there. I mean,
You can see it.
Yeah, right there. And that's Afghanistan, and that you're in this village of Harag, Tajikistan, and when you pull into that community, and I remember right, I was by myself when I pulled in, but the welcoming, added the curiosity, the people that want to connect are, and I'm not suggesting they mob you.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that they'll kind of start moving, an individual or two. So your barriers could come down in a hurry. If I pulled in an big off-road vehicle, and parked it over at the side, it would almost be intimidating for people.
Like a Land
people.
Cruiser.
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
And I've seen like while you're editing your videos and everything, like multiple times you'll pull up into like a village and all the kids will literally just come running because they're so curious about the motorcycle. I literally have footage of that.
Well,
That's cool.
and it is super cool. I know when we on our first trip to South America, the Expedition 65,
Yeah.
we actually had soccer balls, and I think we had about 100, but they were deflated, and we had to carry deflated soccer balls. Then we could blow them. We could inflate them.
Oh, that's awesome.
And when you had a gathering of children around you, especially when you had a soccer ball. I mean, we're talking about they might have a soccer ball, but is it inflated?
Yeah.
Yes. Is it destroyed?
Never know.
Yeah,
I could have had it for 20 years.
and by the way, they don't have grass and most of these places don't even have grass on the soccer field. So it's rewarding. It's personally rewarding, but it also, if you just have to you have to be intentional about what contribution can I make to this relationship or what we're doing right here. And a little bit of it is what contribution can I make and what can I experience for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a mutual situation, pretty typically.
Yeah. And the motorcycle facilitates that.
For sure.
Okay. For sure. Would you say it's risky riding a motorcycle? Like, have you experienced like slippage when you're riding on sand?
What are some of the drawbacks
Yeah.
of traveling by motorcycle?
Yeah.
Well, you don't get to. First of all, you want to travel as light as possible, and sometimes there might be. I mean, drawbacks are like you carrying any extra oil or tires with tubes or whatever you might feel compelled to do. I don't feel that compelled to carry much, and I'd rather stay as light as possible. So that's a drawback. Weather's always a drawback. I mean, there's stories that we can tell about snow and ice and circumstances and being so cold that you literally stop every 45 minutes to an hour and lay in a ditch to get out of the wind.
What is that story?
I've never heard. What? I can tell you that story. But I think it's I think the motorcycle. I mean, the drawbacks are really weather and it's hard. It'd be hard to find a tire. I know in the outback of Australia, we had a couple of because really sharp rocks, and there was just 3 of us, but 2 of us had rips in sidewalls. And we literally had to have tires shipped to the outback because we couldn't. There's no way to accomplish that. So you had to find a place they would ship to. Then you paid a tremendous, premium to get anything shipped to the outback, and then 3 days later you're putting a tire on.
That's actually really interesting. I mean, I've never ridden a motorcycle remotely like that.
Yeah, but I'm going to take you on the back, son.
It sounds good, Bill. Have to have. How like what are your options out there? Like for food, for water, for rest, for like the basic
Well,
amenities?
that's where you I probably wing it more than most, and that's actually a great line. I mean, that's a great line that we can all joke about. But I might be writing with somebody that really plans everything, and I appreciate those people. And a really good friend of mine, he really plans everything, and I appreciate being with him because I don't have to do anything. But I kind of miss winging it. I have another friend that he's great winging it, and I'm great to wing it. But the point is, I think you have to be prepared for some power bars. But personally, I think peanut M&Ms worked as well as power bars. By the way,
I agree.
yeah. and make sure you have water. I mean, there's a couple of fundamentals. I almost always carry some level of first aid kit, and
So we're talking about you definitely plan for the things that will save your life.
well, yeah, generally,
I mean, that's food and water.
I'm not carrying an Uzi or anything, but
No, I'm not talking about safety. Basic essentials, I should say.
right. Yeah, I think so. You carry those things, and but it's really that you can't prepare for everything, or you'd be so overloaded. And listen, I've traveled hundreds of thousands of miles on 6 continents and over 60 countries, and I can tell you, if I very few times was I in a pos did I was never really in a position where I felt threatened by not having, all the right stuff.
Okay.
Because there's no way you can prepare for everything.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. It's hard to think about when you're riding like that because it's so remote. And, even just driving in America between like Utah and Nevada, you feel like, oh, the next stop is 600 miles away. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah. Well, I think this last summer, I think experiencing the kind of travel we did, big mileage travel, kind of high speed, big mileage, lots of weather circumstance.
You're talking about Europe,
Europe,
the 9,000 miles.
right?
Wow.
Right. I think that was, but it's amazing. You're looking and you're saying, okay, I have a range of over 300 miles on the motorcycle, and you kind of say, should I pass this station? I have a 150-mile range left. Do I pass? Do I go on? Then you get someplace, especially in some countries, and they're either closed or they're out of business or whatever. So you can't always trust your GPS. So
Yeah.
it's probably best to play it safer than I typically would.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of oh man, I came in on fumes and I feel really proud of myself. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You probably know when you're traveling the different countries on different continents, some of them are more well equipped with petrol stations
Right.
and some are less.
Well, like in China, literally, they would not let us into the gas stations in China. So they had to carry cans of fuel out to the motorcycle.
Good thing you only had a motorcycle. Because a big truck.
They'd let that happen, but for some reason, it was pretty crazy. They would not let the motorcycles in because someplace along the way, a motorcycle caught on fire. And
Wow.
and this was in the Uyghur region, where I think they're somewhat suspicious of kind of everything that's going on over there. But and listen, you're in bad. You get bad fuel all the time.
Mhm.
I'm pretty convinced that I've had bad fuel at so much. In fact, I have a motorcycle engine that's just being rebuilt, just finished being rebuilt in Germany, and it was all carboned up. 30,000 miles is all the motorcycles had, but there's so much carbon in that engine that, but anyway, they've got it all cleaned out. And I said, what would be the typical reason? And they said, absolutely, it's bad gas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just going to hit it.
Yeah. There's no way you can avoid it.
Wow.
Yeah.